So, in University of New Hampshire, Turning Point USA had a conference about free speech. And over there, Dave Rubin had a Q&A session where he was talking about free speech, I'm guessing. So there, this woman stood up and asked him a set of questions regarding hate speech, which I don't think Dave Rubin did justice addressing. So this is how I would have responded if I were him. So this woman stood up and argued that hate speech exists and that it should be illegal. So presumably her argument is that if hate speech exists, the government should have the moral and legal authority to use violence to stop you from espousing hate speech because it promotes violence against a group of people. Essentially, the government should have control over who is allowed to say what. That's what it boils down to. Right? And that's what Dave Rubin should have asked her back, and which he didn't. So the first thing that she said in her argument is, regardless of what Charlie Kirk or Dave Rubin thinks, some people believe and they feel that they're victims. They get spit upon, they get called racial slurs, and regardless of what Dave Rubin or Charlie thinks, these people are legitimately victims. And I agree with her. Victimhood is subjective. If you step on gum that someone spat out in front of you, you might think you're a victim while someone else might not. It's completely subjective. But that isn't the debate. Whether true victims exist or not isn't really the debate, and they got sidetracked. The true debate is if victimhood exists, or if victims exist, which it does, what are the consequences of that? What are you allowed to do because you believe you are a victim? Are you allowed to stop someone from saying nasty things that make you feel like a victim? Are you allowed to make someone lose their jobs and destroy their livelihood because they said something that made you feel like a victim? If Ben Shapiro goes to University of Columbia to talk about the rise of conservatives, does it give you the right to go and completely shut down his speech and send everyone who paid for that event, force them to go home because you feel like him talking about conservatives makes you a victim? Right? So that's what he should have asked her. So the second part of her question was, what does it take for someone to admit that there was an actual hate speech that was used here? Right? Does that person have to get lynched? Do they have to get shot before Dave Rubin admits that hate speech occurred? Well, I agree with her. Hate speech does exist. By definition, the legal definition of hate speech is speech that is intended to insult, offend, or intimidate a person because of some traits such as race, religion, sexual orientation, etc. Right? So that's not the debate. Whether hate speech exists or not is not what this debate is about. The debate is about if hate speech exists, which it does. What are the consequences? If you feel like someone has said hate speech against you, do you have the right to destroy their ability to say whatever they want? Do you have the right to stop them from saying those things? That's what the debate is about. So at this point, the crowd goes into an uproar against Dave Rubin for something he said. And she says that, see, this is what I mean. Where is this? And Dave Rubin was saying, okay, I'm trying to say something, you're not letting me. And then this girl says, okay, so where is this boundary where someone else's free speech infringes upon your free speech? We have a First Amendment right to stop you from saying what you want. So what's the problem with that, right? When your own free speech infringes on someone else's right to exist. The second part of the argument, your free speech infringes on someone's right to exist, I think is bogus. But regardless, let me answer a question. There's something called the heckler's veto, where if you don't like someone's free speech, you go and use your free speech to completely stop them from saying anything. So what happens is at the end of the day, there is no free speech. That doesn't sound too bad, right? If a Nazi is coming and saying Nazi things and you don't like that, and you go stop that Nazi from saying Nazi things, you did a great service to humanity, right? But here's the thing. Let's draw it to its logical conclusion. If there's one person, say it's Marvel, what's his name? Thanos, right? Say Thanos feels like a victim, right? Anytime anyone says anything that he doesn't like, he feels like a victim, right? And he has free speech, and he has the ability to stop anyone from saying whatever he doesn't like to hear. In that case, whenever someone speaks and he doesn't like it, he will use his free speech to stop that person from saying what they want to say, right? Drowning their voices out completely because he feels like it. So if every single other living being on this whole universe cannot say anything except for Thanos, because he is using his free speech to stop them, does free speech really exist in the universe? Right? Like, I don't mean to get metaphysical, but think about it. Free speech means nothing if everyone is not allowed to say what they want to say freely, right? Just because you have the free speech ability to stop someone else's free speech doesn't mean you should. It defeats the entire purpose of free speech. It defeats the spirit of the First Amendment. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. So basically, now here's where she completely defeats Dave Rubin, in my opinion. This is where he failed to answer her. So this single question was very important. She asks him, okay, you're Jewish, right? So do you think hate speech against Jews promote violence against Jewish people? The simple answer is yes. If you say, yeah, all Jews are evil, I mean, that's literally true. In Nazi Germany, that's what happened. Hitler said hate speech against Jews, and Jews did get killed in thousands and millions. That's very true. But here's also what Dave Rubin should have asked her back. When the government determines what hate speech is and is not, right? Have millions and millions of people died as a result of government controlling speech? Yes. Let's look at communist Russia, USSR, where like 5, 6, 7 times the number of people who died due to the Nazis, more people died because of communist regimes determining who can say what, because of communist regimes determining that these people are not allowed to have their particular set of political beliefs. So they kill them, send them to gulags, right? So yes, people using free speech to promote hatred against a group of people is dangerous. But the government deciding what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say is 100 times more dangerous. And history has showed us. Like the number of times you can point out to hate speech leading to people dying. There's hundreds and like thousands of more examples of when the government controlled speech and that resulted in even more violence. Right? So clearly, yes, hate speech against Jewish people does promote violence against Jewish people, obviously. Like, it does. But the trick is, as human beings, as a community, we must use our reason and use our sense of morality to argue against these people. We need to let them say what they feel. We need to allow them to say their hate speech so that we can use reason to defend what's right and to show that these people are ridiculous, that they're wrong. If you don't, these people, like, if you shut them down, they're not going to stop believing what they believe. They're going to keep on believing them, and this hatred is going to grow and grow. But if you let them say what they want to say and then show the whole world how ridiculous they are, right? Isn't that way more effective? Like, because handing the government the right to determine who says what is hate speech is dangerous. Like in England, this comedian was about to get sent to prison because he made his dog do a Nazi salute as a joke, because they determined it to be highly offensive speech. And that several examples of this is currently happening. So basically, the whole thing is, she's saying that the government should have the right should have the ability to stop free speech using the force of violence, because the government physically stopping you from doing something is violence. Is a terrible idea, because history has shown that yes, while hate speech can be dangerous, it can be combated. Right? Hate speech has been combated in America. Hate speech against black people, like slavery, is pretty much eradicated in the West because of free speech. And obviously government had something to do with it. But the only reason the government did this is because people rose up and said, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. The government didn't just, like, decide on its own to eradicate it. So it's similar, like free speech can be used to, combat hate speech. But if you drown out someone's free speech using your own free speech, thinking that, oh yeah, this is justified, it's never justified, because there will be no free speech, and history has shown that it always leads to tyranny.